Welcome back to the fifth episode of Watercolor Saturday tutorials on my YouTube channel. This is the topic we are going to learn today. I'll be covering the basic of graded washes, and we will be making this beautiful landscape with misty mountains and misty trees. Materials that I use is Daniel Smith watercolors, Artificials brushes, Princeton brushes. I have this bigger palette which is filled with Daniel Smith watercolors, but for beginners I would recommend this basic palette. Lana acrylic paper, it's beautiful paper that I'll be using today for my watercolor demonstration. So let us begin and start learning. I have taped down my paper to this cutting mat, and we will start with a very basic sketch. It is just a horizon line and the pathway that I have drawn in pencil, and we will start with the first basic wash of cerulean blue. You have to make sure that the bead of water is still there when you're painting. For an even wash, I'll just make 2 stripes of cerulean blue and then clean my brush completely and then add clear water. So this will lead to that grading of the color from dark to light. And now I'm just adding clear water because I want a misty effect, a fading effect, so we don't want color till the end. If you feel the color is still very light, because it will dry very lightly, so just add some more pigment to it. Cerulean blue chromium from Daniel Smith is a beautiful granulating color I love for soft blue skies. So that's a beautiful background first layer that we are doing. You can move or tilt your paper for a movement of the color, which will be more natural. So this one has dried completely. The next mix that I am taking for a first range of mountain is ultramarine blue mixed with a hint of indigo, just slightly, because I didn't want that prominent ultramarine blue to look as at this completely very bluish shade. So I've just mixed a little bit of indigo to it, and then again after you have done a particular portion, add clear water so that it moves. Also, I forgot to tell you that my board or my paper is at an angle. It is not completely flat on the surface, so this helps the color to move freely downwards, which will create that beautiful wash. I have covered all the basics in my previous video that I will link in my description. So if you are a beginner, you would love to watch that video and learn more about the basics of watercolor. So our second layer is dried, and we are on to the third layer. And again, to have that misty effect, make sure that you are not painting directly where the color is done. You are leaving that misty effect, that faded wash. So we'll begin from an angle, and this is a beautiful mix of indigo with a hint of ultramarine blue. So now it is more of indigo and less of ultramarine blue. And I am using my flat brush with gentle movements to create a mountain. So this had a little less water. I would recommend using more water to the wash and then adding clear water. So here we go. You can see the pigments moving freely downwards. Always clean your brush completely and use clear water when you're creating misty effects. Otherwise, it will not happen. That clear water will help to get those little blooms and pigments running and create that misty effect. So now we are done with 3 layers. We are on to our 4th layer of painting, and this painting is completely dry, and we can see a particular line on the left hand side, and I'm covering this line in my next layer. I'm using a mix of cascade green with a tint of indigo, and make sure you are leaving that white mist in the mountain of your background and not covering it completely. Again, once you are done with adding that pigment layer, add clear water and allow the pigment to move freely. Make sure you don't have these lines, so for that you can still work while it is wet. To avoid those lines, add more water, spread the pigment. That will help you. So here is a closer look to the beautiful cascade green. It's a lovely color. If you are a Daniel Smith fan, this is one must green that you have. And yet another green gold, my favorite. So green gold for the foreground, or a bright lushy meadow in this foreground. Be careful while you're doing it. I'm using a wet on dry technique where my mix is a fairly wet one, and I'm just doing a basic flat wash, I will say, and covering the entire area of the meadow. Similarly, on the left hand side, where we have the small portion of the meadow, be careful while you're doing it because you have a roadway going through and it is in perspective, so it is tapered, narrowed there, and you have to be very careful while you're doing it. And some sprinkle of water for that beautiful magical blooms of watercolor. I have taken a cascade green and just putting it here and there for just a grass effect, and at the edges. Make sure the paper is damp so that it blends into your green gold, and there is a transition, there is a bleeding, so that it's not a outline that you are doing. If you feel your paper has dried, you can stop, allow it to dry completely, then again put a layer of clean water, damp it, and then paint. Do not overwork, do not rush into your paintings. Take your time, be very patient, and you will love how watercolor works. Okay, so once it has dried completely, we will begin with the misty trees. And for the mist to create, we will need clean water. Make sure it is clean water. If you have any muddy water, throw it. Get yourself a clean jar of water. Add water till the portion you want the mist to be. So it is upon you, your size of painting. It cannot be definite. I am using a size 2 round brush from Princeton this time. And I'll use cascade green be almost directly from the pan. Just add a little bit water to make it flowy. And as you create the pine trees, and when it touches with that clear water, you can see that beautiful pigment. uh, they are just on an exploration of their own, they are moving on their own. And if you're using a granulating pigment, uh, they will just granulate beautifully to create a beautiful misty effect. Cascade green is a beautiful color. It separates into a little bluish, greenish, and yet sometimes a very intense dark green. So this green has my heart, you can say. For the pines, I make these small tiny gestures. So this can be a little time consuming. So if you think you will just take 2 minutes, that is not the thing. You have to give your time and patience to your painting. And this is a process you will love when you actually find the rhythm, find the movement, and connect yourself with the painting. You will see with every pine tree that you are painting, you are actually connecting yourself more with it. So that's the process of making these misty pine trees in the background. Add clear water, and then on the top of it add make pine tree silhouette. You don't have to paint a big tree, you just have to paint the top of the tree because the bottom of the tree is taken up by the mist. And then in the bottom you can add some pigment. So you have some definition at the end, at the bottom of the background. Also make sure you are not just painting one tree, you are adding trees. It make it look like a group of trees, it's a bunch of trees, it's a big forest. So you have to keep on adding a tree behind every two trees, so it will look more natural. And we'll continue doing this throughout this end. I'll just cut it short and you can see the end result. So now I'm adding clear water to the foreground once again. As I said, if you want to have a soft edges, you need to wet the background, your page first. I'm using Cascade Green plus Indigo to make it more definite, more clear, or you can say more crisp. So now I'm deciding on some foreground trees that will not have any mist, or some group of pine trees that will be standing here in the foreground. Repeat the same process, movement of the brush and painting the pine trees. Mostly if you paint a triangle, it will just resemble a pine tree. That is the basic that you can do, and then create some variation in the leaf, in the movement, and you have it perfect. So now let us begin with our roadway, and we are almost near to the end of completing a beautiful painting. It's a mix of indigo and Jane's grey. You will see I have mixed indigo to quite a lot of colors here, and that is because that color is removing that saturation from the original colors and making it more pleasant to the eyes. Basic flat wash covering the entire road area. You can decide on the saturation of this. It can be very deep black, or it can be just beautiful light wash of gray. If you don't have Jane's gray, you can mix ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and you can just keep on varying the ratio of each pigment, and you see the beautiful gray. I'll repeat the same process on the left hand side of creating pine trees. So just adding some small group of trees to make it look more balanced and make it look more lively. For our last step, this is a bleed-proof white that I'll be using to create a divider. You can use any type of white that is gouache or poster paint or acrylic diluted in water. It can be anything. Or you can have used masking fluid to reserve that white. So this will help to create a better perspective. Lines direct your view. It helps you create that interest. And with that, we are done with our painting. It is important to sign your painting when it is completely your own or reference picture is taken from a site which is copyright free. So now we will remove the masking tapes. I hope you have liked the video and enjoyed this tutorial, and this tutorial was of some help to you to learn something in your watercolor journey. And if you did like my video, consider liking, comment and subscribing to my video channel. Every Saturday I'll be coming up with a new tutorial. If you have a special request, let me know in the comments and I'll try to cover that in the next video. Thank you so much for watching it.